Hello, my name is Eliza Elise, or Caffeine Misery, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite decks to come out of DZBT 13, Paralytic Clash. And this will be the first one of this deck's nature on the channel, that being Zero of Salvation, Blangdmire, Fantôme. Fantôme is a new kind of theme they're doing. If you've ever played Magic, think of it like color-shifting Planeswalkers, except instead of Planeswalkers, it's your Vanguard. So this is a Keter Sanctuary Blangdmire, and its whole gimmick is still using the Bind Zone to build up its power and resources, kind of like how Nexus does early, like from your turn 4 onward in Blangdmire, while also using the Crimson Moon order that we will get into very shortly, that is going to be played in every single Fantôme deck because it's used as a cost. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. First off, we've got our Zero, the Omen of Exhalation, Cavity Militia. It's so weird seeing the Blangdmire starter with like a human face. It's just a regular D starter though. And then we've got our Grade 1, the Wings of Jubilation Holoraptor, which, when rode upon by Fang of Fane, Vacant Fang, you can search your deck for up to one Crimson Moon, toss a soul, and shuffle the deck. Now, real fast before we continue on with the ride line, what is a Crimson Moon? Well, it is an order subtype. This is specifically Crimson Moonlight, which comes in double rare. They are all grade 1s. There's this one and then a rare, and they have functionally the same ability that they can be played as long as you have a Fantôme Vanguard. You check the top 5 cards of your deck and reveal a card. If you don't reveal a card, you shuffle and draw. That is only on the double rare. The rare doesn't have the line of text. That's the only difference. But if you reveal a card, you can perform one of the following. As long as it's a unit with grade less than or equal to Vanguard, you can call it, or you can add it to hand if it's Crimson Moon. Along with that, it's got these 3 abilities at the bottom. First, that it cannot be bound other than by the Fantôme skill cost, which Fantôme skills are unique skills that the Fantôme Vanguards have. They have a wide variety of stuff. We'll be seeing a lot of them shortly, starting with Blangdmires, obviously. Along with that, while they're in the Bind Zone, they can't actually move around to different zones. So you can't just Shoujo Doji to get it shuffled back, because that could ruin how some of these decks work, because they count them all the time. And when it's in the damage zone, you can just put it into drop, then you put the top card of your deck into the damage zone. So you can't even lose them to damage. They fixed the biggest issue with masks. Moving on through our ride line though, we've got our grade 2, the Fang of Fane, Vacant Fang, which, when it's rode upon by a grade 3 unit with Blangdmire in its name, for Soul Blast, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, put one of them into hand, and you either dump the other 2 or shuffle them back. And all of these cards, including our Vanguard here, have the Fantôme race, by the way. Don't think I mentioned that yet, but that's super important. And the Zero Salvation Blangdmire Fantôme has 2 act abilities. The first is a counterblast 1 and bind 4 from drop to give it this red text continuous and this red text auto. The continuous being plus, it gives the front row 5. Then if your bind zone has 10 cards, another 5. If your bind zone has 13 cards, a third 5k boost. And when he attacks, you choose a card from your bind zone that's face up and call it. That is a mandatory skill. You mandatory have to call a card. Along with that, it's Fantôme skill, which can be paid for with 2 to 4 moons, minimum 2, and 3 energy. Performs the following effects depending on how many bound moons you have. With 2 of them, you get to call a unit back from drop, and add 4 more, he'll gain a critical, and if you Persona Road, it's an extra heal. So part of what's going on thematically with these is that the Switch nations have kind of a different history, but they kind of, they reflect something about the regular unit's lore, and it looks like my camera, there we go. Looks like I knocked it. Blangdmire heals because of Reziel stuff. That's cool. Going into our main deck, aside from the 4 Crimson Moonlights, we've got 3 Persona Rides, and then 2 copies of everyone's least favorite card, the Nebulate's Knight's Path to Reach for the Stars. It's create the order that can be played from drop and bind itself when played, and you'll get to check the top 7 cards of your deck and reveal a unit with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard and call it. You aren't just playing it because it's an insanely good card, you are playing it because it binds itself, and that helps you get your numbers up faster. Moving on to our grade 2 cards, we're on 4 copies of the Knight of Inscription Zamu. Yes, Zamu followed Blangdmire to get her Sanctuary. It's got 2 skills, the first being an auto ability on place. As long as your opponent's Vanguard is grade 2 or greater, you reveal the Blangdmire in your ride deck, and if you do, or you have the Blangdmire Vanguard already, for Counterblast 1, you'll get the top 2 cards of your deck, put one to hand, and either bottom deck or put the others into soul. So this is really cool because it is on place, not restricted during the battle phase, which is good because this is the main guy you're going to be calling out, because when he attacks, as long as you have a grade 3 or greater Blangdmire, he gets +5, or if the opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, and it was placed by your Vanguard's ability during the battle phase, so specifically that auto ability is placed by, it'll gain 10k instead, and if it got 10k for 3 energy, you can get a critical. It's Zamug. It's pretty good. It checks cards still. Along with Zamug, we got 2 copies of Knight of Ambitious Wings, Kogaflon. Yes, the original hand cyclers, the original ride cyclers all got Fantôme versions. And they'll have the same 2 skills. The auto ability that once discarded when riding from the ride deck, as long as you have a Fantôme Vanguard. For 1 soul or 3 energy, you get to search your deck for one of these Crimson Moon cards and add to hand. And when they're put on Guardian Circle, as long as you have a Fantôme Vanguard, for Counterblast 1 or 3 energy, you get to draw a card. So it has the Gun Cycler ability, and it searches out your moon. Other than that, we're going into the generics now with 4 copies of Sage of Rainbow Liveron, who, when discarded, head to ride from the ride deck, or when placed on Rearguard Circle, by revealing in your ride deck a unit with a Persona Ride icon, or being on a Vanguard with a Persona Ride icon. For Soul Blast, you get a Persona Shield ticket, which is a Blitz order that allows you to play a second Blitz order for that turn and gives the attack unit plus 10k. On that, when he attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, he'll get +5, so it'll be a 15k beater. And we've got so many orders, normal orders in this deck. Of course, for now, we're on 3 copies of 449 Teeth Vault, or specifically the Mage of Peaceful Era Freerun reskin. And on place, as long as it wasn't by a unit card's ability and you played a normal order for a soul, you get to check the top 5 cards of your deck and either call in normal units, or call a unit card from amongst them with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, or add a normal order to hand. And when she attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, as long as you have 4 more units, she'll be a 20k beater. Unfortunately, she's not just here because you have an order package. She gets you your extra Crimson Moonlights if you see them often, and she builds up your drop zone just for the Soul Blast cost so that you can use Blangdmire's skill. Unfortunately, a lot of these order cards actually synergize really well. Rounding out our grade 2s, I'm on Protection Twincast as my Regalis piece. Going to my grade 1s, I'm on 3 copies of Knight of Charity Badakt. This is a Fantôme unit that has the Bind Zone ability that when your unit is placed from the Bind Zone during the battle phase, as long as you have a Fantôme Vanguard and you don't have a copy with the same name, you can bind a card with a different card name from your drop zone and call it to a backward or rearguard circle. So this is your extra booster. Along with that, when he's placed on rearguard circle, except during the battle phase, as long as you have Fantôme Vanguard, you get to check the top 5 cards of your deck for either a Blangdmire or a Crimson Moon. And then you'll add it to hand, then shuffle. So this is how you're going to be seeing these 2 cards more often. And at the end of the battle boost, as long as your Bind Zone has a Crimson Moon and you haven't countercharged, you can retire him to countercharge 1. So you're never really lacking on Counterblast because you typically only use 1 to 2 a turn with Blangdmire and Zamug. Very rarely you would use the defensive for Kogaflon, but that's very rare. Moving on, we're also, of course, on Saragon. We have so many orders. We're playing Saragon. This has the skill that when you boost, as long as you have more regards than your opponent or you've played an order, you'll get +5 until the end of battle, and at the end of battle, for the cost of retiring it, you can check the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 into hand, and the rest on the bottom. Again, not just in here because you're on orders. He builds up your drop zone, which really fuels Blangdmire's skill because you need to have 4 cards in drop constantly. Rounding out our grade 1s, we are on 4 copies of Carrier Protection Kethlin as our Sentinel. And going into our trigger lineup, I am, of course, starting out with 8 critical triggers. You don't need soul crits in this deck. You see a lot of Soul Blast costs. You're only really doing them in the early game or once per turn, admittedly. And more often than not, it's going to be Leveron over Freerun, in my opinion. Anyways, going off of that, we're also on 3 of the shield fronts. Shield fronts for extra guard value. You are on a number of orders, so the extra guard value comes up. We're on 4 heal triggers, and, of course, rounding it out, we've got Eidos Faro as our OT, which, when drove check, he has the additional attack to add a card back to hand from your drop zone and you give a unit a critical. You could definitely be on like Walnuts. Zamug's isn't a once per turn, so as long as you have the energy, you could swing twice with 2 crits, 100 million. That isn't a thing you can't do. You could be on Merid Zombia to board wipe because it's funny. All the OTs work pretty well in this deck, honestly. Now let's go ahead and go into the pros and cons. First off, the biggest pro is that this deck is really easy to pilot. You want a deck that you can hand your friends and teach them how to play Vanguard. It has a weird mechanic with the Crimson Moonlight and Fantôme abilities, but it's honestly really easy to pilot. And along with that, you have the path, you have Freerun, you have Saragon. Oh no, this is just the most optimal way, in my opinion, to play it. You could totally cut those to have a really budget version of the deck. Aside from these 3 cards, the only admittedly expensive card in the deck is Crimson Moonlight, and maybe Leveron, but you can just play something else, especially after set 14, because there's going to be even more cards. And the deck has a very straightforward resource loop too. Badoct gives you back a counterblast. As long as you have the counterblast during the main phase, you are perfectly fine. And you've got Golgaflon to make sure you see the moon. You have Freerun, the moons themselves, honestly. The deck is very consistent and very good at making sure you see what you need. Going into the cons, though, it's very straightforward and direct. It has one line you want to be doing every time. You want to call back Zamug and use Badoct to call himself back to. Along with that, if your opponent just damage denies you going into grade 3, if you just don't have the resources, they can completely stall out your first grade 3 turn and really lose nothing by doing that. They might have to guard a little more because they haven't attacked yet, but they'll be able to get a full grade 3 turn where you've done functionally nothing if you go second. Or going first, they can put a lot of pressure on you with high power turns to try and kill you. And that's another thing. The deck, honestly, in my opinion, has an issue going second. You wouldn't think it, because Zamug ends up being live a turn early. Leveron will give you the extra guard value you need, but you kind of have to see these cards to do it. Freerun, will occasionally miss. For example, you might just not hit combo pieces as to be able to play going second and third. Honestly, until like turn 4 or 5, the columns just aren't that good. Your first turn, Blangdmire's going to give +5 to the front row, so this will be like a 20k beater, 28 with the Badoct swing. but Oct boosting, or 33 with the Saragon, which sounds pretty big, but honestly, a defensive makes one-card guards pretty easy. The deck's numbers don't really... You start building up to like your second or third turn on Blangdmire, which really does slow down the deck. You physically have no way to hit that first bind zone threshold your first turn yet. And that can really cause a lot of issues with the deck. But that's just my thoughts on the deck. This is a deck I really like because it's so straightforward. It's really easy to use to teach the current game and the current format, even with the weirdness of the Fantôme cards. But if you guys like the video, you like listening to me yap, you just want me to keep doing it, do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see y'all next time. Ciao.